If you're still exporting QuickBooks invoices and payments by hand just to see what's being paid, what's overdue, and doing manual reconciliations, this workflow will fix that. In this video, I will connect QuickBooks to Google Sheets using the API so all these reporting updates automatically. Then I will add an AI layer so it will tell you which invoices are overdue and what's the level of risk of those invoices and what to do next. So by the end of the video, you will have a spreadsheet that will pull payments and invoices automatically so you can review cash flows and cut manual work. All right, so let me show you the final result before we get into the setup. So this is the spreadsheet, and you can see here that the idea is that we will pull the invoices IDs, invoices number. Then we have here the customer name, the invoice date, the due date, the status. So we have three statuses here: open, paid, and overdue. Then we have here the days until overdue. In this case, we have these ones that are okay, and then we have some with travel, these two here. Then we have here the total amount, the pay amount, the open balance, and this how many payments have been done for that payment, for that invoice, when was the last payment here. And then here we have a follow-up. So this part is the AI layer that I mentioned we will implement. And this part here will come from QuickBooks. And then here we will be like, okay, if it is overdue, how many days? And the AI will tell us, okay, the risk is pretty high, so the priority is high, right? So this is high, high, medium. And this one will give us just a summary of what's the risk and why. This is coming from AI. What is the recommended next action? And then what is a possible follow-up message that you can send to the person so the payment gets done. So that will be the final result. And yeah, the idea with this automation is to solve this problem that I've noticed. People are exporting these payments and they're exporting the invoices, and they're doing the manual reconciliation, and then they don't know like what's overdue, what is not overdue, and then what to do, right? Like what's high priority and what to do, right? Like in this case, we have some suggestions for AI, so it also gives us a possible message that we can do, And if you wanted to extend this automation even more after, you could take this message and send it in an email. Okay, so let's start with this. I will do it all from scratch so you guys can see how everything is working in the backend. But the spreadsheet, the template will be down below in the comments. So you just go there, make a copy of the template. It's free and you will get access to everything, okay? So here in the spreadsheet, we just give it a name. You can like QuickBooks YouTube, for example. And then here you go to extensions, and then you go to AppScript. And here in AppScript, basically, you can start coding. So QuickBooks YouTube, let me change the name here. So here we need to do two things, right? So we will have two files. One will be for authentication. The other one will be the one that will run the automation. We need to do this because we need to authenticate with QuickBooks. And the authentication is a little bit tricky, but don't worry, you just need to follow the steps. Everything is in the code. So the authentication, the way it works is that we need to get a refresh token. And with this token, we can make calls to the API. So usually for the ones who don't know how this works, is like we have a refresh token and we have an access token. So a refresh token is basically a token that doesn't have an expiry period, and we can use it multiple times. And then we have a refresh token that usually expires within 1 hour. So we will use the refresh token to keep refreshing, right? This access token, so we can use it always to make calls, right? So the idea is that we have the refresh token to refresh the access token, and with the access token, we make calls to the API. That's the logic of these tokens. But first we need to get the refresh token, right? So that's the tricky part, but I will explain. So we can start just by renaming this with auth, and then we can add another one that will be main, right? So these two files, basically, this one will do the authentication and this one is for the automation. Okay, so let's start with authentication. So basically I already have the code here. I will just paste it and walk you through everything. So the only thing that matters here is this variable authorization response URL, right? So this is the only thing that you need to change here. But before we get into this, we need to do some setup in QuickBooks. So let me explain. So first, we need to go to Intuit Developer. So I will put this link down below in the description. Once you are here, you need to create a developer account, and that's pretty simple. Once you create that account, you will get to this part here, and then you can go to App Dashboard here, right? App Dashboard. So you click there, and then here we can create apps. So you can see I was testing with this one, this app, but the idea is that you just click here and then you can create an app, right? So let's just do the flow so you can see how it looks. So you click here and then you go next. Okay, let me move myself here, next. And then here you just give it a name, right? So let's say, I think I kind of use QuickBooks there. So let's say test 2. You can just name it whatever you want there. And then next. And then here you have two options, right? You can select accounting or you can select payment. Basically, these are just permissions or scopes. So it depends on what you're doing and what you're using the API for, right? In this case, we will only pull data, so we need accounting. But in case you are making, like you are automating payments or something, you will need payments here, okay? But in this case, only select this one and then clicking done, right? So it's just showing that we need to confirm, and we just give it a few seconds, and then that's it. So basically the things like you can see here that is saying testing and it's in development. You can see these credentials, these are just dummy credentials for Sandbox. However, you want to have this app in production. You don't want to have it in testing because you want to be able to access real data. So I will show you what you need to do to put it in production. So you go to app settings here, and then here it will take you to this flow, so you can change things here. So you need to go to production here. So you just need to follow the flow here. So first you just need to review your details, then you need to agree on some agreements, and then here this part, they connect URIs. You can just put whatever is like whatever link that is pointing to your host domain, for example, the URL of launch. Like, I think the way to think about it here is that just put your website, right? Like if you have a website, put it here. So for example, when I applied for mine, I just did like this literally, and I just put it there. But if, for example, in this case, it needs to be this with this HTTPS, right? Same here, right? So that just do that and it should work. So if you have a website, just put it there. Then when you click here, what is the category? You can select what is this app being used for. In this case, I'm just using it for accounting, right? So that's why I selected that. And then here, yeah, this is just like a question. You can just click none above. And then here, you need to put your country and your IP. So this part is important because it means that you can only make calls to the API using that IP. So the IP basically is like an address of your computer. So if you don't know where your IP is, just what's my IP. You can just Google that, go to the first one, and it will tell you what's the IP of your computer. So you just copy that IP address and you put it here, and then you're good to go, okay? So once you go with that, you go to next, and then it will take you to compliance. Okay, so I filled this, so I can show you what you need to do next. So once you finish with all of that, you can go to compliance. And here in compliance, you will have a questionnaire. So you click on start questionnaire, and it will take you to this page here. Yeah, and it will take you to this questionnaire here. And I think it will be useful to do all the questions together. So if you're filling this, you don't get confused. So for example, this part about the, have you ever company received? No, I haven't. This is no. Yes, I comply. Yeah, you select yes here because you are automating this to enhance your experience with QuickBooks. So this is no. But in this case, we're not, I mean, not really. We are not really doing anything, just like suggestions. I mean, doesn't really matter. I just will click no. Let me, so actually I need to save, and let me see what else. I need to go to the next tab. Let me see what else here. We show the following is true about you. Yeah, so pretty much this is true. I'm doing everything from scratch. And then here, what are the APIs, right? that the app will be using. In this case, use web browser, right? So you can just put that like this. Then how does you interact with it? Well, in this case, we are just reading data. So you put it like that. Yeah, it's just a private app. Well, you can select whatever you want to do here in the case of like the people, right? Like who's going to use this app. But you can select any person if you have a team. Otherwise, you can select yourself. And not really, just it's safe. Let's go to the next one. I mean, technically, you could literally just fill this randomly, but how often your app refresh tokens? So this is what I explained about, like we need a refresh token, right? So we can say every time we make an API call, yes. This is just like if we have like a fallback in case there's an error with the authentication we have, but I mean, you just put yes there. You select yes, yes, yes. And this is just asking if can handle the scenarios. Yeah, I can handle all the scenarios. So you click yes. No, and here you select no. We don't need the authentication playground. Basically, playground is like a part of QuickBooks where you can do this exchange of tokens. What I mentioned, the refresh token, authentication token. But we will use code, so we don't need this. So you can just select no, right? And then let's go to the next tab. Let's see what else here. Well, this is what I mentioned, that we have some APIs that we can use here. So we're using accounting API, and this one is for pulling data, everything related to accounting in QuickBooks. This one is the one that you will use in case you are automating any type of payment. And this is just payroll, right? So in this case, we're using accounting. So accounting here. And then how often does your app call our APIs? Yeah, I think this one. Only depending on, well, I need to move this here. Yeah, that's fine. Then let me see next up. Which customer facing? Well, this is the type of plan that you have. In this case, I just have this one because I created this account for testing. But in case you have Essentials Plus or Advanced, you select that one, right? I mean, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm saying. Like, once you fill this form, it will get approved automatically. So I don't really think you need to like put a lot of effort like filling this, but I'm just explaining it. So you kind of get a sense of how it works, but I don't think you need to like, worry much about this. Yeah, okay, no. And then, no, none above. No, we don't use webhooks. So webhooks, basically, for the ones who are wondering, is like every time something happens in QuickBooks, you receive a notification somewhere, right? So let's say I don't know, maybe someone paid something, right? So you will get a notification in some other software. So that's what a webhook is. But in this case, we're using the API. We are not using webhooks. No, save, and then submit. Oh, wait. Let me see if we have something else here. Oh, yeah. Almost done with this. Have you tested your app? Yeah. Does your app have mechanism for storing? Yeah. And then save. Oh, well, this one is asking how. So let's say no. Then save. And then next. Oh, wait, this is the last one. Yeah. No, we haven't had a security breach. No. Yeah. I mean, this part is like if you are, the client ID and client secret. So basically, we need these two credentials to get the refresh token. We will have this hard coded in the code. So basically, this will be a no. But like if you are, because if nobody is accessing your app script, you should be good to go. But like, let's say you are, I don't know, like maybe if you are implementing this with Python or JavaScript or something that has like a web, like a front end, right? Like a website or something, and you need to integrate this API with that. In that case, it might be not secure to have this like in logs, like show these credentials in logs or show these credentials in the front end. So in that case, you will use a password manager, right? You could use a credentials manager, sorry. You could use, like if you are deploying to Google Cloud, for example, Google Cloud, like you could, for example, if you Google like credentials man, yeah, like if you Google this, you can see secret manager. So you can see that you can store API keys, passwords, and stuff like that, sensitive data. So you do that if you're implementing this API with Python, JavaScript, or something like a proper website, right? But if you're doing this with AppScript and you're just running this simple script, I don't think you need it, right? But this is just to be secure. Again, I explained it with Google Cloud, but all the clouds have the same, AWS, all of them. Well, this is no. No, we don't use captchas. We are not using WebSockets either. Or I don't know, save. And then I think we can just go, let's see. So yeah, let's see what happened here. So now if we go back and refresh, I think we're good to go. You see now if you click here in show credentials, we have the credentials. So that pretty much means that we passed, right? So that's it, like these are the things that we need, the client ID and the client secret. And with this, we can get the refresh token. So basically you copy this, you can put copy and then you go to the code. So we will have here main all these empty. So for example, right now I had it here because I was testing, but the idea will be this, right? Let me have this empty so I can do this with you. Yeah, like that. So you just paste the client ID there and you do the same for this client secret, right? So that's the idea there. There's something important as well. So you can see here that we have redirect URL, right? So you click there and it will take you here where you can change this redirect URL. So basically a redirect URL is when you're doing authentication, because again, we need to run this code and it will give us a link that we need. Once you click there, it will take you to QuickBooks so you can authorize the app. So meaning it's just like a prompt saying, do you authorize this app to access your data, basically. So once you click OK, it will take you somewhere and that somewhere will return a code, authentication code. So that's the thing, like we need to set up somewhere like this somewhere. That could be a website, could be localhost or something, but usually the easiest is just a website. So if you have a website, use your website. If you don't have a website, you could use mine. It's automationforgrowth.com. So just copy it and then you can put it here, right? As you can see. So just paste that like that. Just make sure that you have the HTTPS there, otherwise it won't work. But you can see here that is also requesting that. And then you click save. And you also need to put it here, right? So if we go back to the code, okay, this needs to be empty, this part here. So you can see here they also have it redirect URI. So basically this is important. This one needs to be the same one here, okay? If it doesn't match, that will be an issue, okay? But right now it is the same. So basically we need to set up this authorization response URL. So basically that's what I'm saying. Like once we click here, it will take us to a link and then we authorize the app. It's gonna give us a link. And with that link, which is like, it contains the authorization code, we can get the refresh token. So let's do it. So we save and then we run main QuickBooks refresh token, right? So let's run it. And we got this link here. So this is the link that we need. You just copy paste that. You paste it here, and then you will get this pop-up saying that we are trying to connect to the app. So you can see here that it's showing you all the details, what it's trying to access. You click connect, and you can see here in the link that basically my URL plus something, which is this code, and this is the realm. So this code here, you will have it. Actually, you can just copy that. You could copy everything. Doesn't matter. It will work, and you paste it here like this. Okay, and then you save, and then you run this other function, main QuickBooks Exchange Rate URI. So you click there, and it will do all the exchange tokens for you, and you will get a refresh token. But I made it convenient, so it will be saved in properties. I will explain in 1 second how you can get it. And then this realm ID is important. So you copy that realm ID and you put it in this other config. As you can see, we have a variable for that. You put it here and you save. Just make sure you save so you don't lose it. Also, if you lose that realm ID, you can also check it here. So you can see here in the URL that we have the code, and then we have here the realm ID, right? In case you don't save it and you need it again. So for if you want to check the refresh token, you can go here to property project settings, sorry, and then here you can see that it was saved under this property QuickBooks refresh token, and this is the refresh token, all right? And that's pretty much it. So with that, we have the authentication. Now we only need to set up a few things here so we can run the code, okay? So basically you can see that I have this sheet, that the sheet name, how you wanna call that when you are writing data. In this case, I don't have it. You can see here that I have just sheet one, the general, the default one. So I will just rename it to report so it matches. So you can see report. And now, So we already set up client ID and the client secret. We already set up the Realm ID. Now we need the OpenRouter API key. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we are adding an AI layer to this, right? So we're pulling the data from QuickBooks, but also we're gonna use AI so it can classify what is overdue and like give us some suggestions of what's the level of risk and what can we do after, right? Like maybe it will give us some templates for the message that we can send to the person so we can request the payment, right? Depending on the severity of the risk. So this OpenRouter is cool. It's a website you can Google it. It's like this one. So basically here you can access multiple AI APIs, LLMs. For example, if you like, you can see here that we have like literally a lot of APIs. So if you are tied to OpenAI, you can use that. If you like Claude, you can use that one as well. So you can see you have Gemini, you can use Grok, right? And the cool thing about this API is that you only need to change this one here. So you can see here that we have the OpenRouter model. So you only need to change that and the rest will work. So for example, if you're using OpenAI and you didn't like it, you can change this to use the Gemini one, right? And the way you do it is that you can see here, for example, let's say we want to switch to Grok, this one. Well, so you can see here that this is the way you will ask, like the way you will redirect to this endpoint, right? So you will just change the endpoint like this and it will work, okay? But we need the API key so we can access that, right? So if you create an account, this website is pretty simple. You just create an account, pretty straightforward. And once you are here, you can just get an API key like that, right? It's pretty simple. And you have some credits in the beginning so you can test for free. And if you are using this like in production like multiple times, you might get a prompt that you need to pay. But if you're just testing, it will be free, okay? So let's do that. Let's create an API key here. You can see here, yeah, it's just the one that I was testing. But I think I need to create another one because I cannot see it. So just test, expiration, and then you copy that and you put it here. And again, well, this is the model. You can change that. Also, this is the temperature. So that's important if, like, for example, right now it's being like super deterministic, meaning 0. So if you don't want it to be like, like talk a lot, the model, you can switch this to 0 as it is right now. But if you want to keep adding, like maybe you want it to be more like, I don't know, talk a little bit more, you can increase this to 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You can see here I added a comment, so 0 means more deterministic and more consistent. It won't have like a lot of room for creativity, so it will always kind of say the same. I think this is important because it's like the same things, right? Like you don't need to be creative here. But yeah, it's up to you. You can test. And then here we have the prompt, right? So I added this general prompt. Basically what I'm saying is like you are a collection assistant for a small business. Analyze each overdue QuickBooks invoice and return only valid JSONs that matches the schema exactly. Use only the provide invoice data, and then again we classify these invoices in high, medium, or low, and then we can add some things, right? Depending on the risk, do some things, right? But again, like we are filling this column risk summary, recommended next action, and this draft follow-up message, right? So that's what we're asking the model to return. And then here right now, the only ones that we are sending are the ones that are overdue, right? So those are the only invoices that you need to check. But for example, if you wanted to check more things, you can send all of them, right? So you just need to add the open invoices and the paid invoices. And with that, we are ready to go. So you can save it. And then once we run it, you should be able to see that it's running. So let's run it, right? So you need to run this one, main QuickBooks Google Sheets. You select it and you run it. And you should be able to see that it's working here, right? So it worked there. And it added the invoices. So that's pretty much the logic again, right? So we have here the invoices, the customer name, invoice date, due date, and this is the thing that I was mentioning, right? So it's kind of like classifying if the invoice is high or medium in level of risk, depending on how overdue, how many days overdue it's been. And we have here like the risk summary, a recommended next action, and a draft follow-up email. And again, like this is what I mentioned, like if you wanted to extend this to more automated, you could get this message here and send it via email to the client, right? But that's the idea with this automation. All right, guys, and this is pretty much the video. So the idea with this video was that, right, like you want to remove this manual exporting from QuickBooks, doing the reconciliation manually, invoices against payments, and then, thinking what to send to a client, and, you don't know how to classify the invoices. So with this automation, you will be able to export everything automatically. AI will do the classification for you, and you could have your team or yourself craft this as an email and send it to the person, right? Or you could extend this automation and get this message right away and send it via email, right? So that's the idea. I hope this was helpful. You have this template down below in the description. Let me know if you have any questions. I will reply to them as soon as I see them.